that's true. I should have said that. Yeah, but you know what? I'll take it back. They were better than that guy was. No, you know what? The difference is really that guy who was so awful to me was a really good actor, and I've seen him in many things since then, and he's always excellent. I don't know what was bugging him then. Maybe he was just overwhelmed by my whatever.
You're a wide shot.
Yeah. But no, the cats were abominable. You know, and I love cats, don't get me wrong. People think, oh, you hate cats because you didn't like Spot. No. I loved even those cats. They just couldn't act. Seriously, they would write things for these cats to do that they simply couldn't do, you know, and the writers knew that. They just wanted to upset me. But whenever I would open a script and it said Spot, I was like, oh, because it was going to take all day long to shoot with these guys. And it's so silly, you know, these quote-unquote trained cats. Sure. You know, I had a honky thing that we got, hinky, and that was supposed to make them do what? They did nothing. They never did anything right. Ever.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Pleasure. All right. How you guys doing? Yeah. Good. Hey.
Okay, so this character's already been mentioned, but I want to ask you a question about your greatest character ever. If Bob Wheeler was in the Federation, what rank and career would he be? Extra points if you can do it in this voice.
I don't think Bob would be in the Federation. Bob can barely speak. You know.
No, I don't think Bob would. I thought what you were going to ask me is if somebody came to me now and said you could play Bob Wheeler with all the new technology, would you play him the same way?
So we can get a CGI Bob Wheeler?
I would play him exactly the same way. Except for one thing. He'd be much, much older.
I'll take it.
Hi there.
Good afternoon. I was curious if you had any particular anecdotes about working with Stephen Sondheim.
Well, Stephen Sondheim was, I don't know, was he the greatest genius I've ever worked with? I've worked with several. I mean, obviously Gene Roddenberry was a genius, but Stephen Sondheim, I mean, I couldn't believe I was getting to work with Stephen Sondheim. It was fantastic. I was so intimidated by him that I could barely speak when I was around him, but I mean, the greatest talent of the musical theater in my lifetime, and greatest lyricist maybe ever. Beautiful, you know, melodies. Truly a genius. And I didn't get to know him well while I was working with him, but few years later, a friend of mine, a guy by the name of John Logan, who wrote, by the way, your favorite Star Trek movie, Nemesis. Well, John also, by the way, wrote Gladiator and The Aviator and Hugo and on and on and on and on. But he wrote the movie of Sweeney Todd. And so he called me one day and he said, hey, Sondheim's coming out to California and we're going to have lunch. Do you want to join us for lunch? I said, yes, of course I do. And so I went, my wife, my son, Rick Berman and his wife came, Rick who produced Next Generation, and we just had the most wonderful day, and we talked and talked and talked and talked. It was just incredible. And afterwards, Stephen said to my friend John, he goes, God, I knew Brent all those years ago, and we never even spoke. And we had such great conversation. And it was thrilling to just to be around him. And I saw him one more time after that in New York. This was kind of interesting. I went to see a production of La Cage aux Folles that starred a friend of mine, Kelsey Grammer. And you've heard of him. And Kelsey, when I was in Sunday in the Park with George, that was the production I did for Stephen Sondheim. We did it as a workshop first, and in the workshop, Kelsey Grammer was in the show. That's where I met Kelsey. And it was Mandy Patinkin and Bernadette Peters, Kelsey, and it was wonderful. And but it was just a workshop. We didn't know if it was going to go to Broadway or not. And one night, and we used to get notes after the performance, and one night after the show, James Lapine, who wrote the book and directed the show, gave Kelsey a note in a sort of, in a manner that you wouldn't expect a director to give a note like that. It was really hard, and in front of everybody. And Kelsey blew up in front of everybody and said, "Don't you ever talk to me like that again." It's in Lapine's book. He has a book out called Putting It Together, and that's in the book. And Jim is a really nice guy, by the way. He didn't know at the time. You don't do that in front of him. But it so put off him and Sondheim that when we went to Broadway, which was 6 months later, they didn't hire Kelsey. And Kelsey was brilliant in the show, but they hired somebody else to do the Broadway version. And ironically, the day we started rehearsing Sunday in the Park with George for Broadway, Kelsey got a call to go to Los Angeles and audition to play a character called Frasier on Cheers. And so if Kelsey had been in the show and had not been fired, maybe someone else would have played, Frasier. Who knows who would have been Frasier? But now he's doing Frasier again. Frasier's coming back again. And but anyway, the last time I met Sondheim, I'd gone to see Kelsey in La Cage aux Folles, and afterwards we went to a restaurant, and Sondheim was sitting behind us, and I said, "Let's say hi to Steve," and he went, "Yeah." So we got up and we went around and I said, "Hey Steve, hey Brad, oh Kelsey, how are you?" And Kelsey said, "Good, Steve, how are you?" And he says, "Good." Sondheim said, "You owe me." He said, "If we hadn't fired you, you would never have been Frasier." And it's true. But there you go.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Hi, Brent.
Hi.
My husband said to tell you hi, so that's that. Hi.
Did he?
Yep, he sure did.
Well, will you tell him something for me? Hi.
All right, I got a question for you, and it's not going to hurt my feelings, Steve, if you address the other half of the room this time.
Oh, go ahead. Ask.
They need their chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved you in Independence Day.
Thank you.
I just want your opinion, and I know you said you don't watch your own movies. Was it really necessary to make that sequel, The Resurgence?
Well, I don't know if it was necessary. I mean, what's necessary, really? I mean, I'll tell you what, though. You didn't care for a Resurgence, right?
I wonder what your first clue to that was.
I think it was it necessary? You know what, let me tell you something, though. I have a much better part in it than I had in the first film. I mean...
I said I loved your part. Yeah.
Maybe, just maybe, they should make another one with just me. You know what? I actually have an idea, and I pitched it to Dean Devlin, who co-wrote Independence Day with Roland Emmerich, and Dean produces Leverage and has produced Leverage for years, and he has other shows on. He's quite an entrepreneur in the television business, and I pitched to him the idea of doing a show called Area 51, and starring Dr. Okun and have it, you know, I think people would watch that. And he said to me, that's a no-brainer. And I said, come on, you know? And he said, you know what, I'm going to talk to the people at Disney because they own it now. That 20th used to own it, but then Disney bought 20th. And so now Disney has it. You know what, write Dean Devlin. If you're on Twitter, say, hey, how about Area 51 with Dr. Okun as a series? I'm sure you wouldn't mind being reminded. Anyway, you know what? You can't. Everybody starts a movie thinking we're going to make the best movie ever. It's going to be so great, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. And but while you're making it, almost always you're kind of going, this is going to be really good. I mean, I've made some of the worst movies ever made. Resurgence doesn't even come close to, you know, have you ever seen Dude, Where's My Car? Actually, you know what, I take that back. Dude, Where's My Car is a really good movie. I mean, I think it is the quintessential 80s movie. What I meant to say was, what was the movie I was in with Dana Carvey? A Master of Disguise.
That was fun. He was the bad guy.
Master of Disguise, one of the worst movies ever made. And I made an even worse movie than that, called Material Girls, with Hillary and Haley Duff. And if you saw that on a triple bill with Resurgence, you'd think Resurgence was a classic. Let me ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
Will you watch Area 51 when this audience convinces Dean to push it? Well, we have 2 minutes left. How many people are in line still? 100. Just one? Oh dear. Well, go make yourselves comfortable because we're never going to get to it. I have, well, all of a sudden it went to 50 minutes. It said 2 minutes just now. What happened? Did I just get another 50 minutes? No, I don't know what that means. Anyway, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2 over. I was 2 over already. Was someone ever going to stop me? Well, you can ask your question. You're going to be the last one. Okay. Sorry?
Hello? Okay. So, have you ever met Alan Alda or any of the cast from MASH?
Cast of MASH, yes. I've never met Alan Alda. I certainly am 1 or 2 degrees away from him. But David Ogden Stiers was on our show. Wonderful guy. Funny, brilliant, a great comedian and actor. Yeah. There you go. Let that be a lesson to you. All right. I guess that's it. By the way, I want to thank you so much for doing this. Fantastic. Don't forget 2 things, 3 things. My book, fan fiction. Number 2, Dean Devlin. Write him on Twitter and say, come on. Number 3, and most importantly, the Brent Johnny Show at gmail.com. If you have anybody who needs us to come see them and do something with them, send us an email. All right, thank you all so much. Rock and roll. Thank you, Kansas City. Yeah.